It's a throwaway song that should have never been thrown away. Written by the world's biggest rock band and released as a B-side to one of their all-time greatest tracks. Sadly, it never made it onto its intended album or any of the 6 that followed, a proper album, and yet it's been held as a top-notch tune, living for decades as a holy grail rarity. Status reinforced by the fact that his songwriters never played it live. It's a hidden gem for the ages, one that was forgotten. Almost everyone aside from avid record collectors and classic rock DJs. Would fans ever get their hands on this incredible track? Find out about it next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you distinctly remember the first time that you had your mind blown by a life-changing song or record, you're going to dig this channel. That's what we celebrate. Make sure to subscribe below right now so you get our latest interviews and videos. Click the bell. Also, become an insider through our Patreon page. The link is below for that. So in the past, we've featured various versions of a series that we call Hidden Gems. In the past, we've covered these criminally underplayed songs from the 70s and 80s, 90s, focused on different genres, and even featured a Bottle Lightning Hidden Gems mashup. But today, we're going to put a new twist on this old favorite by diving deep into Led Zeppelin's extensive catalog. Of course, this monumental band had so many standards, classic rock standards in their time, that their music has become really some of the most recognizable, instantly recognizable from the first second. The list of rockers is insanely long. I mean, just try narrowing down their songs to a top 10 list. It's almost impossible. You have enough leftover classic rock staples to fill another couple greatest hits albums or best ofs, maybe more. I mean, it'd be hard to do a top 50 Led Zeppelin list. They have so many, just a wealth of top tier material, with everybody and their mother arguing which of their landmark songs belong at the summit. You know, if you look at the charts, I mean, what's been their most streamed songs of all time, most played? Not surprising, Stairway to Heaven is at number 1 in terms of streams. Immigrant Songs at number 2, Whole Lot of Love at number 3. If you do a YouTube search, you're going to find a similar cast of characters. Beyond these are, of course, so many Zeppelin favorites, many of which come from albums 1 through 4. So many perfect songs by this band. It's astonishing. I mean, they're right there with the Beatles. I said, baby. All that being said, for today's episode, I want to pull back the curtain a little bit further and shine some light on a song that deserves to be in more regular rotation in our lives. It's a bit overlooked, a bit underappreciated. Hey, what can I do? With 2 groundbreaking albums under their belt, in 1970, Led Zeppelin was the best new thing going in music. But as Robert Plant and Jimmy Page started work on their 3rd record in April, they were in need of a serious breather, far away from the crowds. So the 2 musicians found some much-needed peace and quiet in the rural setting of Branyarar, making their home in an 18th century cottage in Snowdonia, Wales. There, the duo would sequester themselves for about a month, joined only by Robert's family, Jimmy's girlfriend Charlotte Martin, and roadies Clive Colson and Sandy McGregor. Actually, by this point, the guys had written a few tracks that would land on the album. There was Immigrant Song, we've talked about that one, Friends, and there was also Tangerine. But there in the idyllic countryside, an influx of new musical ideas would come to the forefront as Jimmy Page and Robert Plant explored the forest and the hills, followed the streams and mucked about the cottage. Songs seemed to emerge out of the ether. Then sitting by the fireplace at night, the duo shaped this new material into the beginnings of Zeppelin III. Now, once their rustic sojourn was over, Led Zeppelin spent the rest of the summer rounding out the album, at various locations. At Headley Grange, they rehearsed the newly written pieces Friends, or Celebration Day, Since I've Been Loving You, Gallows Pole, and Bronyar Stomp. There, the group also used the Rolling Stones' mobile studio to lay down some backing tracks. The guys also held recording sessions at 2 London studios. There was Olympic Studios in Notting Hill. That was in May and June of 1970, and Island Studios on Basing Street in July. Mixing began in August at Ardent Studios in Memphis while the band was on their 6th U.S. tour. Perhaps it's no surprise, considering the tranquil setting where the band wrote so much of their material. But Zeppelin III was almost a full-on acoustic undertaking. Now, the record was released on October 4th of 1970 in the U.S., and it was October 23rd in the U.K., and it topped the charts in both places. Stuck around for 40 weeks in the U.K., and it was 19 in America. Many fans and critics alike were surprised by the more laid-back nature of the album. We talked about this, especially when they flipped it over for a side 2 listen. On the first 2 albums, Led Zeppelin had unleashed a furious onslaught of heavy blues and pounding electric rock. And although, yes, 3 would have its hard rock moments, its more folk-focused sound was something of a departure. But for Jimmy Page, this was just the next logical step in the band's progression. He said, acoustic guitars were all over the first 2 albums. It was always there. It was right at the core of everything. It was always meant to be there. The third album was just another evolution. It was different from the second album, as the second album is different from the first. End of quote. After overcoming their initial surprise, many listeners started to appreciate the beautiful rustic qualities of this lighter material. My friends, I'm really proud to share a new addition to my daily life that is doing wonders for my physical and mental health. It's Bubs Naturals, a single-source collagen and MCT oil powder that is actually backed by scientific research to help us feel great and do good. Now, the Feel Great benefit is all about making you feel amazing and live a fuller life by making Bubs Naturals a daily regimen. I've struggled for decades with stomach issues, so I tried this on a recommendation from a friend, and after a few weeks, I've seen a major improvement. Half the players in Major League Baseball and other professional athletes use this product. It's because it works, and it's NSF certified safe for sports. Now, the do-good part is about the mission behind Bubs Naturals. Bubs Naturals is named after Navy SEAL and national hero Glenn Doherty, with 10% of the profits from the sale of the products going towards charitable causes. Below is a dedicated link for the Professor of Rock community to learn more about this great brand of products. I also love the apple cider vinegar gummies. This is amazing stuff. This is going to set you up to die young as late as possible. Bubs Naturals. When it came to Zeppelin III, the critics were slow to come to their senses, and 3 was routinely slammed by industry tastemakers. The short-term album sales were something of a disappointment. But regardless of the mixed reception, members of Led Zeppelin were pleased with their work. According to Robert Plant, after the completion of 3, he felt like the sky was the limit for this band. He saw nothing but endless possibilities and directions for the band to go from there. Ultimately, they would be vindicated with time. Led Zeppelin III went on to sell more than 6 million copies just in the U.S. Only the mighty Led Zeppelin could sell 6 million copies of an album and have the album deemed somewhat of a disappointment. When for any other massive band or artist, that would be considered the peak of their career. It's funny. We judge Zeppelin and the Beatles and Pink Floyd a little differently. According to Jimmy Page, Led Zeppelin had worked on 17 tracks during their sessions for their 3rd studio. Out of these, 10 would actually make it onto the record. Among those that didn't make the cut was today's hidden gem, Hey Hey What Can I Do? A product of Zeppelin's laid-back 1970 summer sessions. Hey Hey What Can I Do was written by Page and Planet Bronier and Headley Grange. Then as the band finished up to work on 3, they recorded it at Island Studios. Actually, it was recorded on the same day as Immigrant song. As for mixing, it would be the only track from the Zeppelin III sessions to be mixed at Olympic Studios in the UK.
Wanna tell you about the girl I love.
Allegedly, it was written and recorded to be a standalone single. I've read that in several places, but it ultimately would be relegated to B-side status on the flip side of the Immigrant song single, at least in the US and European markets. Hey Hey What Can I Do? It's a semi-acoustic rock country blend that has a real breezy and mellow sort of feel. Jimmy Page opens the song with an acoustic riff and is then joined by Bonham on drums, of course Jones on bass. Jones also plays a mandolin on the track. After an initial break, Plant launches into his lead vocal in a low voice that is highly effective.
She's the only one that I've been dreaming of. Maybe someday she will be all mine.
By the time he reaches the line, got a little woman and she won't be true, about a minute in, classic Robert Plant explosion that feels like a roundhouse kick to the senses. You get the feeling that he's about to amp up this song or his delivery big time.
I said I got a little woman and she won't be true.
But just when you're expecting things to go, hellfire and damnation, Robert Plant downshifts back down into his nonchalant groove. I love it. I love how they do that.
And she won't be true. On Sunday morning when we go down to church.
His performance is excellent throughout the song. It gets especially inspiring as he reaches the final part of the song. Jimmy Page, per usual, plays masterfully throughout, and though Bonzo's performance is a little more discreet, his fantastic sense of rhythm really creates an irresistible groove. That, of course, along with John Paul Jones's outstanding bass work. Although there isn't much variation in the arrangement, Hey Hey What Can I Do just flows from beginning to outro, where you can then feel the energy pick up enough to send you off just smiling. Lyrically, the song's narrator tells a regretful story of falling madly in love with a young woman who doesn't want to commit. Opening in the first verse, he sings, "She's the only one that I've been dreaming of. Maybe someday she will be all mine."
She's the only one that I've been dreaming of. Maybe someday she will be all mine.
I thrill with her every touch. I need to tell her she's the only one I really love.
I need to tell her she's the only one I really love.
From the context of the song, the girl is clearly attractive, and though it is understated, she is causing him much misery, much grief. And we find out why in the chorus. When Robert Plant sings, "I got a woman, want a ball all day, and I got a woman, she won't be true." If you're not familiar with that former phrase, it's not a reference to basketball or ballroom dancing, although horizontal dancing might be an apt description. Sorry, had to say it. Let's just say she's a bit of a wild one.
I got a woman, she won't be true now.
The rest of the verses paint a straightforward picture as well. In the evening when he's out walking the town, what he's actually doing is searching all around for what he calls his street corner girl.
The town keep searching all around, looking for my street corner girl.
And in the bars with the men who play guitars, his little lover is doing a midnight shift.
Remember the time, my little lover does a midnight shift.
As the song comes to a close, this infatuated Romeo just can't bear sharing his girl with anybody else. So he packs his bags, he moves on, and leaves her where the guitars play.
What I thought was mine, gonna leave her with the guitars play.
But he's not the only one to disappear from sight. As I mentioned earlier, Hey Hey What Can I Do? It never even made it onto Zeppelin III, and it's not exactly clear why. I've done a lot of research on this. Some have argued that musically it didn't fit on the album or that it was just too commercial for Zeppelin's tastes. Others have taken another stance saying, for example, that it would have been better off, as a closer than Hats Off to Roy Harper. If I ever get a chance to interview Robert Plant, I'll ask him. For a long time, Hey Hey What Can I Do was the ultimate in Zeppelin rarities. In fact, the B-side was actually the only non-LP song the band ever officially released. The single came out a month after Zeppelin III. It was November 5th, 1970, and no doubt discovered by some with the A-side Immigrant song reaching number 16 on the Billboard chart the month after that. But aside from the various single copies, the only other record that you could find this on was a 1972 UK rock sampler that was called The New Age of Atlantic. The compilation also included songs from Buffalo Springfield, Yes, and the Jay Giles Band.
Listen to my bluebird laugh. Thinking that love is all the same. I don't need it no more.
Man, the sampler, it's just, it's definitely a lost art in the times we live in, where all music is in the cloud. It was such a great way to discover new artists and songs back in the day. Now, in addition to the record's obscurity, Led Zeppelin also never played Hey Hey What Can I Do live, at least not while they were still Led Zeppelin. The song would actually make it onto the Page and Plant setlist decades later in the 90s, but by then Plant would admit that it was a song that nearly got forgotten completely.
Wanna tell you about a girl I love.
As many of you who came of age in the 70s and 80s will, of course, remember, if a song wasn't on a band's album, only a B-side on a 45, it was extremely hard to find after that 45 was off the market. So it was a treasure back then, for sure. Of course, Hey Hey What Can I Do's scarcity only added to its appeal and its mystique. By the time it finally found its way onto Zeppelin's complete studio recordings in 1993, fans were collectively salivating. Later in 2007, the band also released the track online along with the rest of their back catalog. And of course, it landed as an extra track on the Coda reissue. So the question I've asked myself all these years is, what happened? I wish I knew. The best I can tell you is it just slipped through the cracks, which to me is really surprising because Led Zeppelin was always resurrecting older material for newer albums. I mean, just to illustrate this point, a few examples. I mean, remember how Page said that 10 of the 17 tracks made it onto Zeppelin III? Well, much of this material from those cottage sessions made it onto other albums. For instance, both The Rover and Down by the Seaside would find a home on Physical Graffiti. No Quarter, a John Paul Jones project started sometime before Zeppelin IV. That wound up on Houses of the Holy. And speaking of Houses of the Holy, that would-be title track never made it onto Zeppelin's fifth studio album. Instead, it bumped to Physical Graffiti as well. And then, of course, there's 1982's Coda to consider as well. This post-Bonham hodgepodge featured outtakes and live cuts from throughout Zeppelin's run. If Hey Hey What Can I Do hadn't landed on an album by then, it should have for sure made it on Coda, the original version of Coda, right? Yet this was conspicuously absent. Like I said, it did make it onto the deluxe version of Coda decades later, but back in '82, the Zeppelin faithful came up empty. I mean, poor Tom made it onto Coda. And it was written during the same sessions as Hey Hey What Can I Do? Bear with me here. Truth be told, had Zeppelin released Hey Hey What Can I Do as a single instead of a B-side, and if they had done it right after Immigrant song hit number 16 on the charts, I would wager it would have been their biggest hit. Maybe even a number one hit. I mean, think about the timing and atmosphere of 1970. On radio, the sound of singer-songwriters was all the rage. I mean, James Taylor, Cat Stevens.
I've seen fire and I've seen rain. My lady d'Abanville.
And then Joni Mitchell's Blue and Carole King's Tapestry dropped not long after that. With Hey Hey What Can I Do, Led Zeppelin proved that they could out-Steven Cat Stevens in the singer-songwriter department.
Oh, baby, baby, it's
think it would have put him high in the standings. Then again, devil's advocate here, it could have backfired as well, being such a soft song from Zeppelin. We'll never know. That's my philosophy. In terms of pop culture, Hey Hey What Can I Do has led a life of quiet obscurity, giving even more credence to its hidden gem status. It's about as quiet as a hidden gem has ever been. Amazingly absent in movies and TV, and that needs to change. Hey Hey What Can I Do hasn't been covered by a lot of musicians either. There's a few. Hootie and the Blowfish covered it in '95.
Tell her that I love her so, and thrill her with my every touch.
Then in 2000, Jimmy Page teamed up with Black Crowes to play it. Besides that, Adam Sandler, Randy Jackson, and Alison Krauss, teaming up with Robert Plant, of course, they've all covered it as well. In conclusion, Hey Hey What Can I Do is the definition of a hidden gem from one of the biggest bands in history. How this song is still hiding in plain sight is just beyond me. It's one of the best examples of the embarrassment of riches that those who came of age in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s experienced. You know, when great songs were literally growing on trees. It was popular music's greatest renaissance, and I'm almost certain we'll never see the likes of this kind of talent and artistry again. I really hope I'm wrong. I mean, when Robert Plant screams, "I got a woman and she won't be true," it's a beautiful reminder of days long past.
I said I got a little woman and she won't be true.
Leave us a comment about Led Zeppelin and Hey Hey What Can I Do? Do you remember this song, hearing it for the first time? Are you just discovering it just over the last few years? Which album do you think could have or should have landed on? As far as underplayed songs go, what are your top picks for a Led Zeppelin hidden gem? Let us know in the comments below. Let's have a great discussion about it. If you like this episode, we do invite you to watch our other Zeppelin material. We're going to get to every single one of these guys. We're going to try to interview them. We'll do our best. And make sure to subscribe below. Be a part of this community. Help us keep the music alive. That's the idea here. Till next time. 3 chords and the truth, my friends.